Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to open up with a few things, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions, but I do want to get a few things out there, and maybe we can have a conversation on that. So a few things happened today in the legislature that I think Manitobans should be aware of. Number one is that the Premier, loud and clear in the chamber, said no, voted no when we asked for leave to bring Bill 203 forward, the Early Screening in Breast Cancer Act. Premier said no. The NDP had signaled that they were going to support this bill to bring it to committee so Manitobans could have their say, and exactly like they did last session, they said the same thing and they shut it down today. It's a shame. The Premier needs to apologize and bring this to committee so that we can move forward with the Breast Screening Act. Number two, I'm sure we'll get into his hire of Richard Madden, but no answers, not one, when it came to his salary, when it came to what jobs he had brought in, when it came to what contracts he's negotiated. Just more attacks by this Premier, and I really hope the media is starting to pick up on how often he is launching personal attacks at me. Number three, the jobs agreement. We've heard loud and clear from stakeholders across this province and actually across the country have reached out to me about concerns on this job agreement and how the Premier is wedging Manitobans, dividing Manitobans who have the democratic right to choose who they work for, union or non-union. 80% of the construction and labor workforce is non-unionized, and the Premier just handed his union bosses an exclusive contract. Lastly, I'm going to finish off with the United Way survey. Over 50%, nearly half of Manitobans are struggling financially in this province. Not sure where they're going to buy their food from, if they can afford to pay their bills and keep the lights on. Nearly half of Manitobans, and 88% of Manitobans do not believe that it will get better in the next 6 months. It'll either stay the same or it'll get worse. 88%. And the Premier stands up and wants to distract, wants to attack, and not answer any questions. So before we started, I wanted to get those out there. Now I'll open it up to you for some questions.
On the Bill 50 or whatever it was that was tabled today regarding the question, I appreciate that you probably haven't had a lot of time to look through it. It's a brief bill, but on the idea of having any use of the notwithstanding clause referred to the judges so they can offer an opinion, do you support that idea?
Well, Steve, first I want to back up and talk about what we're actually. Sorry. We'll wait for you. It's okay. We're good? Okay, so I want to back up and talk about this here. So I just mentioned that over 50% of Manitobans aren't sure where they're going to pay their bills or put food on their table. I've talked about how the Premier has handed his friend, potentially up to $550,000 Canadian contract, because we don't know if it's USD or Canadian yet. We talked about the Premier blocking early screening breast cancer, and now, the top of the news headline now is a hypothetical on something that has never been used in Manitoba. I have never once thought of it, considered it, still learning about it, have no intention to do it, but it's all hypotheticals. It has never been used in the province of Manitoba by any party, progressive, conservative as well. And the Premier is playing political games and trying to wedge and distract and confuse Manitobans from issues that are affecting Manitobans today. Healthcare is at its all-time worst. Crime is at an all-time high. Economy is rated worst in Canada. People don't know where they're going to buy food and pay their bills from. And we're talking about hypotheticals that I can't even comment on because I have no idea what the future is going to hold. I think it's very irresponsible of the Premier to say that he would never use it when he does not have a crystal ball of what's going to happen in the future. 10 years ago, no one would have ever predicted COVID. And COVID happened. What happens in the future if something happens that we have no idea what's going to happen? The Premier has irresponsibly gone out and said this. I think it's just the Premier trying to distract everyone. I haven't even seen it yet, and the Premier was late to introduce it. We allowed it because we gave leave, unlike the Premier who stopped Bill 203. There's a direct contrast in the way this building is operating now for myself as leader and the Premier. We allowed leave to bring him forward. I have to see it. We have to have discussion on it before. There's 8 days left in session, Carol. If this was so important, why didn't he bring it out forward? This is the very first I'm hearing about it was driving into work today. So these are concerns and questions I think Manitobans really need to ask themselves. Is the Premier really genuinely concerned with the threat of a notwithstanding clause, or is he just trying to distract from his failures on health, crime, economy, affordability, homelessness, mental health, addictions, infrastructure? I can go on, but I think that gives you a good runway of where this Premier is trying to distract from. And sorry. Yeah, so I'll have MLA Balcaen here, who's a justice critic, so I'll ask him to say a few words on that as well. At a high level, I want to be very clear, and the PCs are 100% in favor of tougher bail requirements. We have from day one said we need to be tougher on repeat violent offenders, back-to-back offenses. We need to get tough on crime and hold people accountable that are repeat violent offenders, making Manitobans less safe. So we need to see more on that. This was, from what I understand, just an announcement that the Prime Minister did in Ontario, so I'd love to see more. There are some glaring things missing from that thing. Drug trafficking, breaking and entering, weapons offenses. But further to that, I'll also just say that we all know that the administration of the criminal code is done by the province of Manitoba, right? The province of Manitoba is responsible for the administration of the criminal code. Is this Minister of Justice ready? Do we have enough Crown attorneys, court services, clerks, reporters, law enforcement? As of January this year, RCMP had a vacancy of over 15%. In 2021, it was 6%. So are we prepared for the changes that Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, wants to institute? Or is this just setting up, is the Minister of Justice ready for another failure? So you can say all you want, but are they ready? I'll pass it to MLA Balcaen. Maybe he wants to say a few words on that as well.
Certainly. Oops. Thank you. So was there a direct question regarding that or just some comments?
What would the impact on that or what financially what you're expecting or what you'd like to see?
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say I'm encouraged that Ottawa is actually starting to listen when it comes to bail. We've been calling for tougher sanctions and tougher rules since I've started in this caucus in 2023, and even my time as chief of police before that. It's always a concern when repeat violent offenders are allowed back into our community. So the judges that are doing these releases are working within the parameters that are set. So now that they have some new parameters that should come into legislation, they'll be able to administer the work that's required. But a word of caution is that we've heard this before from the Liberal government, Trudeau's Liberal government, that they're going to get tough on crime and tough on bail, and nothing came of it. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this is going to come to fruition. I do think that there's lots of room for some amendments and some different areas where we could look at. The leader has mentioned a number of them, but we're talking about violent crime, assaults, weapons, break and enters, especially to a residence. Drug trafficking. The drugs are killing many of our Manitobans, and that's a concern. So we need to be tough on drug trafficking. This Premier said he is not happening under his watch.
Sorry, I'm going to add one more comment here, and this is maybe not for cameras, or maybe it is, but I'm going to go off script, and they're not going to like this very much, but we always got great reporters here. So I find it very, there's a lot of things I can go on and on and on forever about, but I find it very concerning that I asked real questions on the Richard Madden about his salary, about what he's doing, and what he's been delivering for the last 5 months, and not one answer. It was very clear that the Premier just attacked me, commented on he's a good guy, he's got the looks, is what the Premier said, quote, and he wants somebody who's like Trump. I believe the Premier also said that out here. He is signaling that he wants somebody like Trump, that Manitobans are paying potentially 550,000 Canadian dollars, because the Premier won't answer whether it's 387 USD or 387 CAD. He says he's getting paid in US, but what is that? So it's very concerning that the Premier wants to attack and distract when the Premier of Saskatchewan got off his hands, flew to Indonesia, signed billions of dollars in agreements, and came back, and the Premier hires one of his journalist friend reporters to be the ambassador at potentially over $500,000 salary. It's troubling times for this Premier and this NDP government. And I'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you.